Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to another quick tank review. This time we're going to be looking at the Tier 9 British medium tank, the Centurion Mark 7-1. The Centurion specializes in having a very reliable 105mm main cannon, which can go toe-to-toe with any of the tanks in the game, including Tier 10 vehicles. Combining this with a pretty resilient turret, this tank, using its 10 degrees of gun depression, can be an absolute master of ridge lines at Tier 9. If this sounds like the tank for you, stay tuned. I've got a double helping of gameplay after I just review the stats. And if you're not interested in this vehicle, I'll try and let you know how you can take them out effectively on the battlefield. So the Centurion 7-1 has 1,720 hit points. It's a heavy medium tank weighing over 50 tons that has a fantastic 950 horsepower Rolls-Royce Griffin engine. That means that the Centurion 7-1 has actually got a rather good specific power ratio of 18.04, which allows it to accelerate very quickly. However, and coming on to one of the major downsides of the Centurion 7-1, it's rather slow for a medium tank. Its top speed limit is 40 kilometers an hour. There are many heavy tanks and tank destroyers at Tier 9 which are able to go at this speed or faster, and so this can make it very hard to outmaneuver your enemies or simply run away from them if the going gets too tough. Furthermore, this means racing into position, which is a very useful ability of most of the medium tanks, is kind of not possible in the Centurion 7-1. Or at least you're going to take a risk in doing so, because you're quite likely to be caught out by the enemy medium tanks who are likely to get there first. The traverse speed of this tank is also mediocre. It's 32 degrees a second, which makes it quite sluggish at turning. But when we look at the armor profile, we can see where all of that weight has come into effect. It has 120 millimeters of armor on the front, 50 on the side, and 31 at the rear. And the turret armor is 152 at the front, 88 at the side, and 88 at the rear. And so you don't have to be a genius to figure out that you want to keep your armor frontal to the enemy at all times with the Centurion 7-1. And considering you're a quite large box of a tank, if you do give them your side profile, you're quite likely to be penetrated. Let's have a look in What Tank Viewer to look at this in some more detail. So here's our Centurion 7-1, and here is the armor profile of the tank with a key at the bottom. It's worth noting immediately that the ammo boxes on the side of this tank are not a hitbox, as well as the area above the tracks here, so don't try shooting that. Here we can see the upper plate armor of the Centurion 7-1. It is 120 millimeters thick. There is actually a bar over the front of the tank right on the beak that is 154 millimeters thick. At this kind of angle, that means that the upper plate of the Centurion 7-1 is an absolute nightmare to go through unless you're above the target, probably aiming down on them. Considering this is a very tall tank, that's not usually the case. The lower plate, however, is much weaker indeed. As we can see here, it is 76 millimeters, and although it is angled, this is an easy penetration for most tanks it will meet. Now looking at the front of the turret, which is not very obvious indeed, we can see that directly around the gun, including the front of the turret ring, it is 152.4 millimeters thick. And that's fairly good, especially if you manage to angle it by using some of the 10 degrees of gun depression that this tank gets. Outside of that, around here and around there, it goes down to 120 millimeters. And this is one of the most confusing aspects. On top of the tank is 50, but look how angled it is. If you're at the same level or below the Centurion 7-1, this is a ricochet and auto bounce for nearly every target. However, if you are above them, this is a very easy opportunity to penetrate the tank and likely do a large amount of damage to it going into the turret. The tank has a very thin cupola on the top, which is hard to hit, but if you're able to do so, it does have 88.9 millimeters, which is the same as the side of the turret and the rear of the turret. And this, being as flat as it is not really going to bounce very much. If we look at the spaced armor over the front of the turret, it is very patchy indeed, 152 millimeters down to 114 millimeters outside that, with a square of 88 millimeters and an outline of 76. But overall, you'd have to be quite lucky indeed to be able to breach the spaced armor around the mantlet of the Centurion 7-1. Looking at the side armor, we can see there's a large plate either side of spaced armor, albeit that it is only 6 millimeters thick. If we hide that, we can see the whole of the side of the tank is 50 millimeters thick up and down, while the rear of the tank is flat and 31 millimeters thick. So if you have HE ammunition, you can go through here most of the time, even with probably about 100 25mm caliber guns. So all in all, we found out that the turret armor on the Centurion 7.1 is rather good, and considering that the tank does get 10 degrees of gun depression, you can put this to good effect. Furthermore, the upper plate of the tank is rather strong, so as long as you can hide this lower plate weak point, you should be okay frontally. But just do everything that you can to avoid getting shot in the side and the rear of this tank, because unlike some of the other vehicles, maybe like the T-54, it will really not do very well with it. Now we're going on to one of the key features of this tank, and that is this 105mm. That's definitely not the only choice on the tank, as you can use this 20-pounder instead, if you so desire. Let me just quickly run through the 20-pounder for you, which is a gun that you will already have from the Carnarvon if you have that tank. It has a whopping rate of fire of 10.5 rounds a minute, and a fairly good penetration with 226mm. Its alpha damage is low, with 230, but it has a rather good accuracy of 0.32 and an excellent aim time of 1.9. Now the issue with this is that because the rate of fire is so high that you have to expose yourself a lot to be able to engage your targets. But you will have a DPM that is overall 25% higher than if you use the 105mm. And that can allow you to rip apart your enemies very quickly indeed, unlike what the 105mm can do. So on the other hand, if you use this 105, you will only fire 5 rounds a minute. That's right, you're going to fire 1 shot for every 2 times the 20-pounder would fire. But you're going to have 268mm of penetration, 390 alpha damage, with the same accuracy of 0.32, but worse aim time at 2.3. But considering you're going to be firing half the time, the aim time is not such a bad deal. This 105mm also uses HESH ammunition, which if you decide to fire for premium is 210mm of penetration, and if you fire the cheap stuff, it's 105mm of penetration. And the cheap stuff is actually cheaper than your APCR ammo. If you manage to penetrate with these shells, you're going to do 480 alpha damage to the target, and quite likely take out crew members and modules as well. This is a novelty on the Centurion 7.1, as it is the only Tier 9 medium tank that's able to use HESH ammunition. The main problem with this 105mm I'm going to highlight right now. Here are the DPMs, i.e. the damage per minute, that all of the Tier 9 medium tanks are capable of achieving. At the top we have the Object 430 version 2, followed by the M48 pattern, and so on. And at the bottom we have the Centurion 7.1 using this 105mm, which until recently was joint bottom with the Leopard prototype. In the last patch, the Leopard prototype got a buff to the DPM of its 105mm, which has left the Centurion 7.1 the bottom of the pack alone with regards to DPM. If you use the 20-pounder on the Centurion 7.1, it goes right into the middle. And considering that even with the 20-pounder it has higher penetration than the E50, higher penetration than the T54E1, higher penetration than the M48 or even the Object 430 version 2, it makes you think that gun really is an option indeed. The key problem of the Centurion 7.1 using the 105, although it is very reliable, able to go through its targets most of the time with excellent accuracy and pretty darn good aim time, it can struggle to kill them quick enough. Unlike a tank like the Patton or the Object 430 that can take apart its enemies and then move on to its next target. So apart from that, the turret traverse on this tank is 36 degrees a second. That's not brilliant, but it does have a lovely view range of 410 meters, which allows it to spot its enemies at great distances. Anyway, that's quite enough theory crafting. Let's get stuck into some gameplay.
Let's get this show on the road.
So here we go, we're playing on Sand River. We are defending an assault. The Centurion 7.1, I would far rather be over on this side, considering that our 40km/h top speed limit is going to take us quite a while to progress over to the east of the map. And I'm not going to speed this replay up, just to give you an idea of how long it takes this tank to traverse the battlefield. It literally does trundle along, unlike most of the other medium tanks. I mean, it is a little bit of a novelty when it comes down to that pretty much all of the other medium tanks have a top speed limit that is 20% faster than the Centurion 7.1. But it's definitely not all bad news for this tank, because although it doesn't get anywhere fast, when it does get there, it can be the life of the party. So we got spotted there as we progress along this pass. T-54 made it to the ridgeline quickly. We definitely did not. We've used a minute and a half to move from here to here. But now we're here. Let's get the party started. We put a shot into the upper plate of a T-54. That is some thick armor. That's 120 millimeters, but we were able to go through it very easily with our 105 millimeter. Our second shot dives into the dirt, and he fires a heat round that hits just outside our mantlet, unfortunately. The spaced armor would have absorbed that shot, but we lose 320 hit points to that premium round that the T-54 fired. So I'm adjusting my position, knocking down the trees. This is a nice matchup for this tank. There's only one tier 10 vehicle on the enemy team. Unfortunately, that one went a little high. It looked like it went into his turret. And we spot the tier 10 tank, the Leopard, up on the hill. We fire one blind at him. Not sure if that one went in. But thankfully, there is no artillery in this matchup. That means that all I have to worry about is using my armor effectively.
Enemy armor is hit.
That Leopard appears as if from nowhere and puts in a good shot into us. We fire one back at him. We're unsure if that one hit either. Let's look to see where that Centurion... Sorry, where the Leopard penetrated us. Can't quite see. But he hits us in the mantlet that time, or at least in the turret. Yep, straight in the mantlet that time, and didn't penetrate us. But we dinged off his turret as well. That's some good luck for a very lightly armored German tank. And again! 2 ricochets in a row. 268 millimeters of penetration, unable to go through that lightly armored Leopard turret. We fire one Hesh ammunition at him, just to hope. But now we turn our attention to these tier 8 heavy tanks that are trying to make their way up this eastern flank. Oh, that was a horrible shot. Oh, I do some spins in anger at myself. Oh, it's like a trip down memory lane. Oh, I must have been raging after that one. And that one again, I think I would be pretty tilt after those 2 misses. Let's not worry about that. Finally, we connect a shot right into the side of that T-32. And the rate of fire just isn't quite good enough. But luckily our penetration is more than enough to go right through the front of his tank. And they keep shooting us in the turret and not achieving very much. I think that's 4 or 5 bounces off the turret armor of this tank already. And this is a perfect example of what the Centurion 7.1 is good for. It doesn't do a lot of damage very quickly, but it does consistent damage, progressively taking out its opponents. And with 390 alpha damage against tier 8 tanks, that's more or less a quarter of their health with every shot. Oh, I didn't aim that one long enough, and it goes right into the dirt. The tier 8 tanks are multiplying. Now we have a Tiger II below us as well.
Enemy armor is hit.
That was a better hit. And the .32 accuracy of this tank really comes into play when you get to fully aim your shots.
Enemy armor is damaged.
That one went right through the Tiger II turret. Something that probably wouldn't be possible with the T-54 with only 200 millimeters of penetration, unless you decided to fire heat rounds. Now we have the side of a Hellcat. I don't know how we met a Hellcat. Oh, he's signed up with a T-32. Whoops. Now one of the most heavily armored tanks at Tier 9, the T-95. Trying to find his cupola. Unfortunately, we don't hit it. And this is sort of a perfect example of what the Centurion 7-1 is good for. Changing flanks side by side, stopping the enemies from advancing in on either flank of it. Because, as we mentioned, with the poor side and rear armor of this tank, you really don't want to be outmaneuvered. And with that tracking shot on the T-32, as we can see up here, we killed him with 4 penetrating shots, doing 1,550 damage to that poor gentleman. So we're constantly changing sides to try and deliver some punishment to both flanks. Now we're looking for a shot on the T-95. We see his lower plate, and the excellent penetration is able to go through it. Really, this 105mm is able to give any tank it can meet a run for its money, even Tier 10 tanks. Oh, good shot there, right into the side of the turret. And the T-54 is trying to flank us now. I don't want to expose myself to that T-95 or the T-30. Those are some very dangerous Tier 9 American tank destroyers. They will remove my remaining health with one shot if they're using the 155mm. So we're looking for an engagement on this IS-3 now. We don't quite have a shot. And now this Leopard 1, who has left the engagement far too late, is coming to fight. We bounce yet another shot in our turret, and we don't give him a second chance. Again, you're seeing just how good the frontal armor on the turret is of this vehicle. And fair enough, the top speed limit on this tank is not brilliant. But hopefully you're seeing what this 950 brake horsepower engine is capable of doing to this 50-ton tank. It can go forwards and backwards very quickly indeed. That one, however, hit outside the mantlet, right in the corner, and was able to penetrate us. Good shot there by the IS-3. So we're on 5 kills. We're hunting a Top Gun. We've only got 40 seconds left in this game as it's an assault. We put our first shot into the T-71, and we load a Hesh round. This guy has got 460 hit points left. Our Hesh ammunition does 480 on average, with 210mm of penetration. In theory, if I penetrate this guy, maybe about 6 times out of 10, he's going to die. Oh, we've only got 14 seconds. I really want this Top Gun. Where is it? Where is it? Oh, no! We've left him on 15 hit points, and he manages to take us out with only 3 seconds left on the game, although the T-54 rammed him to death afterwards. Great result for the Centurion 7-1, however. We'll look at the post-game stats in just a second. But this position is just a perfect example of what the Centurion 7-1 is good for. A ridgeline to only expose its turret armor, and it's able to quickly go back and forth between the flanks, trying to stop the enemies from making a breakthrough on either side and flanking it. As we can see, we made quite a graveyard on one of the flanks, and also quite a graveyard on the other flank. The Centurion 7-1 gets into position, not the fastest, but when it's there, it's got to be one of the best tanks for simply holding ground and dishing out the punishment. Not at a great speed, but very consistently. So let's just take a quick look at the post-game stats. So we managed to pick up 4,910 experience for our double getting the high caliber medal. We did over 7,000 damage in that game, And unfortunately for us, we let this guy pick up the top gun instead of us with that low roll on the T-71 at the end. So to achieve that 7,000 damage, we had to fire 32 shots, of which we hit 26. Quite a few of them were fired blind, and also a couple of bad misses at the beginning of the game due to my poor aim. Of the shots that we hit, even at the long ranges that we made them, 21 of those 26 penetrated. Now, we took 13 hits that game, giving us 4,380 potential damage received. And we can see that it was the blind shot that hit the Leopard. We did over 1,000 damage to the only tier 10 tank on the enemy team, damaging his ammo rack, which would explain why he didn't shoot us twice at the end, because his rate of fire is much better than ours. This replay highlighted exactly what this tank is good for: getting into a position, holding it, or die trying. Let's move on to some more gameplay.
Let's get this show on the road.
So now we're playing on Corellia. This is a rather nice matchup for this tank, where we are one of only 3 top tiers. We're going to try and make use of that. Now, in my opinion, the most important location for a medium tank on this map is to claim the hill. And I'll say it again, that the top speed limit on this tank means that we get there pretty much the same kind of speed as an IS-3, and slower than that tier 8 French tank destroyer. As an example, here we can see a T-69 that has already managed to make it round the corner, while we're still back here with the heavies, being overtaken by medium tanks who probably got a worse spawn than we did. Don't really want to stop here and turn this into a long-range engagement with an E-75. Even though we do have the better gun, it's still going to be tricky to take out that tier 9 German heavy unless we're able to get his lower plate or snipe his cupola. So there's that T-69 that we mentioned earlier. Let's start to punish him.
Enemy armor is damaged.
Oh, wow. I dodged a bullet there. The guy behind me ate the artillery shell. My word, that was lucky. So we've loaded a Hesh round here, because I thought we were going to have to engage that 1375. And you can see me wanting to shoot him with the Hesh round. We put it into his track, and although it fails to penetrate him, it sets him on fire. And we're bouncing shells from the T-69 all day long there. I give up trying to engage the T-69 and focus my attention to other targets and reload an APCR round, which is the standard ammunition on this tank, costing I think about 1,200 credits a shell. So here we have an E-75. We're going to try and find his lower plate. That was a bit of a greedy shot. Didn't really have the opportunity to hit that target. We tried to make it happen anyway. But the enemy have been pushed back here.
Enemy is hit.
And shooting at an IS-2, he has absolutely no chance against this 105mm gun that we're packing.
Enemy armor is hit.
And even if we low roll, we are taking off a quarter of his hit points with every shot,
Got him.
finishing him off. So now we have an E-75. The lower plate is like butter for 268mm of penetration. He has to angle his armor, but we've got to deal with the T-34, who manages to shoot us again in the side of the turret.
Enemy vehicle destroyed.
We take out his E-75 friend and start to harass the T-34 as well, who fires. Now we know we've got him.
Enemy vehicle destroyed.
So I decide that it's better to pull back. I was actually thinking of going up onto that ridgeline, and it looks like I do it. But then I see that a T-32 is coming around that corner very aggressively, and so I change to engage him instead. This tank does look rather nice in this HD model. One of the few tanks in the game at the moment that is in full HD, but a lot more will be coming up. in patch 9.3. So I don't think that T-32 wants to fight the T-34 anymore. I think he's realized that he's put himself in a very precarious situation. He must have thought that these guys would hold up more and that he would be able to come and assist them and flank us. But when they crumbled away, he's just simply out of position now. I look for an engagement on the Pershing, but we're unable to get one. This T-32 takes a large artillery hit, and we're able to put one into the back of his engine. I think about ramming him, but then I also think about the fact that the enemy artillery might be aiming on this location. Apart from the ramming damage that I would take, I would probably lose 100 hit points in that kill. The enemy artillery could drop a bomb on us, and considering how close this game is, I really don't want to throw it away for no reason. That was a remarkable hesitation for me. Usually I will jump on the opportunity to secure a kill and get a ram off. Not today. I obviously really wanted to win this one. So Pershing has managed to enter our base and take out an IS. Now it's his turn. Hard to miss at that kind of range with this gun. So we reverse as quickly as we can into cover from the enemy artillery. Wait for a few seconds until we're not spotted anymore. And then proceed to try and finish off this game, which is very close indeed. 4 tanks left either side, and we're on 5 kills. What a result this has been. Even if we were to die now, I would feel really happy with this game. This Object 416 sees an opportunity to close the distance and engage the T-34. Sounds like he missed, however. And we're able to help him out just before the T-34 secures the engagement. Always think about artillery. That dodge might have just saved us the game. He must have thought we were going to go forwards. Instead, we had our idea that the artillery would indeed be aiming for us. And as soon as we'd secured the kill, we turned our track to the right and tried to get our backside into cover. So I'm just going to speed this up a couple of seconds. You see, I've loaded a Hesh round. I've done so because I thought I would have a shot on the Borsig. Or the Lorraine 15551. Now this is a 3 versus 3 again, and the Lorraine is right in front of us. Hello! And there was no chance that that round would not kill the target. If I'd fired my AP round, it would have been a 50-50 whether we did 390 damage. Because we fired that Hesh round, I don't think it's possible for that 480 damage to roll below 390, but I might be wrong. So that just made this a hell of a lot easier. Now we know that if we go hull down, as an example, we don't have to worry about the enemy artillery splashing us. We managed to catch an 87. Who is now in the open. And the armor on the 87 might be thick.
Enemy armor is damaged.
But it's not 268 millimeters thick, that's for sure. The Object 416 makes an aggressive play. I get a little worried here. I don't want him to die by himself. So I tell him to wait for me, and he will have to wait for a while. Centurion 7-1 doesn't get places as quickly as it would like to. So we get spotted. I think the Borsig must have spotted us from the center of the map. There's nothing I could do about that right now. There's a good amount of time left on this game. It's been a blitzkrieg for us to be on 7 kills already. So I feel like just securing it. Might as well go and put pressure on the cap. Or alternatively, get above my opponents where they can only see my turret, and secure the kills on them. So we put one right into the side of the 87, but we get ambushed by the Borsig. We reload a Hesh round. And decide to put some pressure up on him. He puts one right into our turret. Let's have a quick look to see where that one went. Again, right in the side by the looks of it. But we secure the kill at the end of the game, picking up our 9th. We had an initial fight with all the light tanks for the hill. Then we had to go down and engage heavies, some of the most heavily armored tanks in the game, such as the E-75 frontally. Double on back to secure the base, and then maneuver our way around the outside to outflank our opponents, even with our slow speed, and get into our final position to rain death upon our opponents from above, which is what the Centurion 7-1 likes to do, with its 10 degrees of gun depression and really good performing turret armor. This really is the Ridgeline Warrior. So anyway, let's just take a very quick look at the post-game stats. So a pretty good double this game, 4,310 experience, getting the Radley Walters for those 9 kills, and the High Caliber medal. This time we fired 17, hit 16, and all of those shots penetrated the targets. The performance of our armor wasn't so impressive this game. We only managed to bounce 1 shot, giving us 2,000 potential damage received, and we had very low health at the end of the game. But we did lose over half of that, I believe, to the Borsig at the end, when we felt like we were just trying to secure the game. So hopefully that gameplay gave you an idea of what to expect from the Centurion 7-1. It has to be one of my most played Tier 9 medium tanks. And I think I'm going to call it Old Faithful. It's just consistent. It isn't ever really going to do anything that surprises you, but there aren't really many situations that it can put itself in where it's going to be outperformed, at least dramatically. And all these attributes have allowed me to get some half-respectable stats in the tank. The only thing I'd say is that in light of the recent patches, I feel like it might be left behind a little bit. As an example, the M46 pattern just got a buff in the recent patch, increasing its accuracy and reducing the dispersion on its turret traverse. The Leopard prototype also, which was the only other Tier 9 medium tank which had DPM as bad as the Centurion 7-1, had a recent buff. Well, it's actually quite a significant buff in the last patch. When they added in the Japanese tanks, they added in the Type 61, which has a similar kind of gun performance. It's sort of in between the M46 pattern gun and the Centurion 7-1 gun, but it has 6 rounds a minute, giving it 20% more DPM and still kind of comparable penetration and depression to the Centurion 7-1. Not to forget that the Type 61 has that 48 km/h top speed limit, making it much more mobile than the Centurion 7-1 is. But none of those tanks really have that kind of turret armor, and also the upper plate like the Centurion 7-1. You can get the Centurion 7-1 hull down in more locations than most of the other medium tanks, and when you do so, then that's where you're really going to be in the sweet spot. So I fully recommend this tank. It's definitely a keeper for me, and I recommend that you try it out and see if the gun surprises you. I'd say that while most of the other Tier 9 medium tanks really like to have a nice matchup, generally because their penetrations are between 200 and 225, there isn't another Tier 9 medium tank that I would feel as comfortable in a Tier 10 game as the Centurion 7-1, knowing that I've got that 268mm of penetration and the gun depression to use it. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this tank review. If you did, please consider giving it a like down below. It really helps the channel out and I'd appreciate it. And I wanted to keep this video length down, so I've omitted using the 20-pounder in it. I have already got 2 20-pounder Centurion 7-1 videos up on this channel, so click through here if you want to see what that lower caliber, higher DPM, lower aim time gun can achieve. And let me know in the comments what you think about the Centurion 7-1. Do you think that because it's got the lowest DPM, it sort of makes it irrelevant, especially considering the top speed limit of the tank? Or do you think that that amazing all-round gun performance apart from the DPM makes up for it? Anyway guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.